Why one should not believe in Israel? It's their treacherous history of deception, lies, and they are the ugliest liars, and especially the Natenyahu. I'll show you a clipping of this, that how in 1949 and what was the statement. He said that everybody can live in there, and see what he did is that what small tiny percentage of Palestinian land he's even trying now to grab. And the BBC just currently showed that after the carnage and genocide in Gaza, the guy is now annexing another 9 to 10 kilometers of there, and where he wants to put new settlements. Already you can see the 2.9 million Gazans living in small tiny strips, and this guy, when he takes another 10 kilometers out, so geez, he is an inhuman. So who can believe Israel? And if anyone does, if Hezbollah stopped the war, Iran stopped the war, Hamas stopped the war, I think that you are just going to pay through your nose. So my advice is that do not trust them. It is right time to conquer every small piece of land which Israel has now, and in your terms, just have your back Palestine, completely level and flatten Tel Aviv, and have its old name Jaffa, all those previous Palestinian names which are in the history. Do not let these liars rewrite these histories. They came from Europe. They have absolutely no right. They talk nonsense about that the Arabs were colonizers. They just came here, but they were the natives. They are not wrong. Otherwise, when you go back to this, then you go back all the way to Prophet Adam's, then you can see that the claims of those people who've been there thousands and thousands of years, then you have to get back and give all the America back to the American natives, all the land back to the Canadian natives.
This is how Israel rewrites its history.
The Arabs said there can't be a Jewish state. You have no right to be here.
Wrong. Netanyahu completely distorts Palestinian sentiments. Instead of saying you have no right to a Jewish state, Palestinians are simply expressing you have no right to take our land and deny us self-determination.
We decided to establish a state in 1948, and we said everybody can live here.
Wrong. Netanyahu sanitizes history and completely ignores the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians that took place in 1948's Nakba. Israel was built on the dead bodies of 15,000 Palestinians, 78% of stolen Palestinian land, the removal of 1.9 million people from their homes, and the destruction of 530 villages and cities.
The Arabs were the colonials, the Jews were the natives dispossessed.
Wrong. Historian Bernard Lewis noted that during periods of persecution in medieval Europe, many Jews sought refuge in Muslim lands.
Now, what did the Jews do? When you ask what have the Germans done to the Jews, you must always ask what have done the Jews to the Germans. Since 1850, when the Jews got all the political rights in Germany, in the German Reich, they have done three things which are really dramatic. Number one, they were a small minority of 2% of the population. At the time when Hitler came to power, 500,000 within 60 million German people. 500,000 among 60 million. They were a small minority. This small minority managed to control about 50% of the media, to give about 70% of all judges, to have a tremendous influence in movie and in theater, and in literature. They were overrepresented. This is one thing. They were absolutely overrepresented, as today in England, in France, and in the United States. Second, Jews were at the origin of a lot of catastrophic financial bank crashes in Germany between 1870 and 1920. In that time, they made a lot of crashes which have, this is all documented. I mean, it's not Nazi propaganda or anti-Semitic or Arab propaganda. It's a lot of books have been published, even by Jewish Germans, about this problem. They have millions of German fathers have lost their incomes, their fortune, their savings, because of these Jewish gangsters, bank gangsters and speculations people. Then the third point, which was psychologically the most dangerous of all, they have introduced into German art and culture and theater and movie decadence, immorality. The first homosexual theaters, plays, were made in Berlin in the 1920s. The first adultery theater plays were made in the 1880s and 1890s, 100 years ago, by Jewish authors. Adultery, then sexual perversions of all sorts, sadism, masochism, a lot of homosexuality, all these things, and then decadent art, you know, an art which is absolutely ridiculous, so-called modern art. It was all pushed by Jewish intellectuals, and this created among the German people a big revolt. And they wrote books ridiculing Christianity, ridiculing Jesus. I mean, it was something like Salman Rushdie with the Muslims, and they were furious.
Jewish are not Zionists. The Zionists are evil. They are murderers, but they are not crazy. These people are crazy people. This is not Zionists. The Zionists don't believe in God. They don't believe in the Torah. They don't believe in the red cow. Did you ever heard Bibi Netanyahu speaking about the red cow? He laughed on that. It's a joke. He don't believe in nothing. It's a joke. The Zionists are evil, but not crazy. Yes. Maybe it would be better if they are crazy. But unfortunately, they are not crazy. They are quite clever. Yes. In the using the cleverness on the bad side. However, we hope that God will bring an end to. You can build a house looks like the Temple Mount, yes, but you can't bring God in that. You can't bring him in. You can't make God to give his spiritual in the red cow. You can take 10 red cows, you can sacrifice, you can burn them, but God you can't bring in them.
I think what he's doing is a mistake. I don't agree with his approach. I think it's outrageous that those three vehicles were hit by drones and taken out on a highway where it wasn't like it was along the shore. It wasn't like there was a convoy moving there, etc. So what I'm calling for is for the Israelis to just call for a ceasefire, allow for the next 6-8 weeks total access to all food and medicine going into the country. I've spoken with everyone from the Saudis to the Jordanians to the Egyptians. They're prepared to move in. They're prepared to move this food in, and I think there's no excuse to not provide for the medical and the food needs of those people. They should be done now.
No, Mr. Netanyahu, it is not anti-Semitic or pro-Hamas to point out that in a little over 6 months, your extremist government has killed 34,000 Palestinians and wounded more than 78,000, 70% of whom are women and children. It is not anti-Semitic to point out that your bombing has completely destroyed more than 221,000 housing units in Gaza, leaving more than 1 million people homeless, almost half the population. It is not anti-Semitic to note that your government has obliterated Gaza's civilian infrastructure, electricity, water, and sewage. It is not anti-Semitic to realize that your government has annihilated Gaza's healthcare system, knocking 26 hospitals out of service and killing more than 400 healthcare workers. It is not anti-Semitic to condemn your government's destruction of all of Gaza's 12 universities and 56 of its schools, with hundreds more damaged, leaving 625,000 students with no educational opportunities. It is not anti-Semitic to agree with virtually every humanitarian organization in saying that your government, in violation of American law, has unreasonably blocked humanitarian aid coming into Gaza, creating the conditions in which so many thousands of children face malnutrition and famine. Mr. Netanyahu, anti-Semitism is a vile and disgusting form of bigotry that has done unspeakable harm to many millions of people. But please, do not insult the intelligence of the American people by attempting to distract us from the immoral and illegal war policies of your extremist and racist government. Do not use anti-Semitism to deflect attention from the criminal indictment you are facing in the Israeli courts. It is not anti-Semitic to hold you accountable.
The Western Empire is not spreading liberalism. They are crushing liberty, freedom, democracy everywhere they go. The United States has special ops forces, meaning intelligence and military operations, in more countries than they have embassies. The U.S. has carried out at least 469 military interventions since 1798, but more than half of those have been carried out in just the last 30 years. They are spreading neoliberalism, not liberalism. And these two ideologies couldn't be more different. And they're not spreading it by discourse and dialogue in the so-called marketplace of ideas. They're spreading it through force and violence on a scale unparalleled in human history. And you can go back as far as you want, or as recently as you want. If you want.
Last month, the Israeli ambassador to India boasted that he could create an entire Israeli army with the number of volunteers he has received from Hindu nationalists in India, who are just itching to kill Muslims wherever they can find them. I mean, it's already been reported that Israel's barbarity in Gaza has become a great source of inspiration for the Modi regime. And we also know the Indian government is studying closely the tactics and strategies deployed by the Israeli military in Gaza, leading many experts to conclude that Muslims in Kashmir are now in great danger of ethnic cleansing in the name of Indian self-defense. India's genocidal plans for Kashmir were accidentally made public in 2019, when an Israeli diplomat in the United States let slip that India will adopt the Israel model to ethnically cleanse the Muslim population and resettle Indian Hindus.
Because we already have a model in the world. I don't know why we don't follow it. It has happened in the Middle East. You have to look at if the Israeli people can do it, we can also do it.
Kashmir
This is how Israel rewrites its history.
The Arabs said there can't be a Jewish state. You have no right to be here.
Wrong. Netanyahu completely distorts Palestinian sentiments. Instead of saying you have no right to a Jewish state, Palestinians are simply expressing you have no right to take our land and deny us self-determination.
We decided to establish a state in 1948, and we said everybody can live here.
Wrong. Netanyahu sanitizes history and completely ignores the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians that took place in 1948's Nakba. Israel was built on the dead bodies of 15,000 Palestinians, 78% of stolen Palestinian land, the removal of 1.9 million people from their homes, and the destruction of 530 villages and cities.
The Arabs were the colonials, the Jews were the natives dispossessed.
Wrong. Historian Bernard Lewis noted that during periods of persecution in medieval Europe, many Jews sought refuge in Muslim lands.
give it all the land back to the Australian natives, give all the land back to the New Zealand natives, and the list will go on and on and on. So they are liars, and they've been thrown out of the world. The maximum countries throw these Jews out, and so there has to be something, dirt, filth, and cruelty, extent, and the lies where no one can believe them. Then you see they are not part of the League of Nations. They shouldn't be the part of United Nations, and they've been, I think, now voices very strong, I think, voices raised that they should be expelled from United Nations, and so it should be. And now recent in the British Parliament, the mother of parliaments, where 60 parliamentarians said that sanction must be imposed on this, because there is no limit that even with a ceasefire with Lebanon, the Israelis attacking them day and night. So now trying to fund all those people coming back to the terrorists in Syria and trying to topple Assad, going back then after Turkey is playing dirty. Erdogan, it's really amazing that how, like a lizard of the desert, the Erdogan has changed his colors and joined by words, and his deeds are too different. So he's a hypocrite. He did nothing. He didn't send even a plane or a drone into Israel to destroy Israel and protect Palestinians. But see that what he has done is to now he sent all the support, his money, his arms in Syria to topple that, so that all the bloodline to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to all the resistance, even in West Bank, should be dried up and stop, and Israel can take over Jordan, Israel can take over Syria, can take over Iraq, can take over Egypt, and then obviously, it will be the turn of the Turkey. Please subscribe to this channel and leave your kind comments. Press the bell button and subscribe so that the latest vlog or the analysis reaches you in time.